Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now, huge news we're talking about in today's video: Sundial Q3 earnings. They also just announced a huge share buyback program. In addition to that, we've got earnings from Alcana tonight, which Sundial just announced their acquisition of a couple of weeks ago. And on top of that, Nova Cannabis also reporting Q3 earnings this week. So a ton to go through in today's video, you guys. Huge price movement in pre-market trading for Sundial. We're going to go through it. We're going to talk about how this changes their business moving forward. Before we get into it, please take a second, hit the like button. It's a huge help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below if you're holding shares of Sundial, what you thought about their earnings, and how you think they stack up to others in this space moving forward. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we're going to be providing an update on Sundial Growers. They just reported earnings after the bell last night. They also reported some big news around a share buyback or repurchase program. Obviously, big impacts on this company and the share price. You can see in pre-market today, we're up early. Share price is moving massively here, you guys, up 30 to 35%, pushing $1 per share on the US side of things. So ticker symbol on this one, obviously SNDL on the NASDAQ exchange. You can see they closed out yesterday at 72 cents US. They're up to 94 cents US in pre-market. Time will tell what today's trading session holds for Sundial, but huge news, and the market is very excited about some of these recent developments that we're going to talk about in today's video. Now, that being said, if we pull up a 6-month on Sundial, you can see this has been a pretty depressing story for people holding Sundial shares over the last couple of months. Back in June of 2021, they were trading around $1.30, you guys. They've pretty much cut their share price in half, and they've been on a steady decline. The big story with Sundial has been constant and ongoing shareholder dilution. I read something mentioning their outstanding share count had gone up about 2,100%. Obviously, that's very tough to stomach for people that are invested in this company, and it seems this share repurchase program is really shifting the tides and putting Sundial back on the map for investors by adding that confidence that they're now done their dilution and they're actually going to start to reduce the number of outstanding shares. So we're going to kick things off here in today's video with the big report that came out on November 11th, Sundial's Q3 financial and operational results. There's a couple of major points that I want to bring your attention to in here. Then we're going to talk about the share repurchase program. And interestingly enough, Alcanna, which is a major liquor distributor and retailer here in Canada and was actually just purchased by Sundial, also reports earnings tonight. And in addition to that, Nova Cannabis, which Alcanna actually owns a majority stake in, just reported earnings this week as well. So it's very interesting, the timing here. All three of these companies very related or interconnected now, all reporting earnings and all very impressive numbers that I think ultimately are adding to the good news story or investor sentiment around Sundial. So if we scroll down through the earnings report here, you guys, there's a couple bullet points I wanted to bring your attention to. First and foremost, they don't even list revenue. They talk about net earnings, which was now positive $11.3 million for the third quarter of 2021, compared to a net loss of $71.4 million in the third quarter of the prior year. So a tremendous improvement here, you guys. Massive difference in the net earnings year over year, and they've now actually flipped to positive net earnings, which is a huge catalyst for this company moving forward. Now, adjusted EBITDA came in at positive $10.5 million for Q3 compared to a net loss of $4.4 in Q3 of last year. So again, they flipped the script there and they've turned to a positive adjusted EBITDA. Net revenue from their cannabis segment came in at $14.4 million. That's an increase of 57% over the second quarter of this year. So sequential quarter over quarter growth, which is phenomenal, and a 12% increase over Q3 of last year. And they actually put up a positive gross margin from their cannabis segment of $1.8 million, which includes a loss of $1.9 million from their actual cannabis cultivation and production, compared to a loss of $19.5 million in Q3 of last year. So across the board here, you guys, net earnings, adjusted EBITDA, net revenue, gross margin, all of them have flipped from negative to positive, and all of them are showing tremendous signs of improvement and growth compared to last year. So we've talked at lengths about some of the other investments in the cannabis industry that Sundial has within their portfolio. The Valens company is one that comes to mind. That's a company that I hold very near and dear to my heart. So investment fee and revenue came in at $3.3 million. They realized gains on marketable securities of $6 million. So together, Sundial's share of profit from equity accounted for $9.9 million in Q3 of 2021 compared to nothing in the prior year. So you're starting to see some of those investment gains and returns that the leadership team has been talking about. They have $1.1 billion of cash, marketable securities, and long-term investments. So a huge portion of their market cap, you guys, is in cash or cash equivalents. And just about $600 million of that is actually in unrestricted cash with no outstanding debt on the books. So obviously a lot to unpack here and a lot to like from the investment community, as this company and the share price has been beaten down so hard over the last 6 months. It now seems they've hit bottom or a turning point and they're back on the way up. Now, third quarter key financial metrics, you can see they actually divide into 3 different operating segments. So cultivation and production, retail, and investment. And it'll be interesting to see how these different components ebb and flow over the next couple of quarters as they bring in Alcanna and obviously the impacts of Nova Cannabis within the retail space. Now, the other thing I wanted to quickly bring your attention to here, you guys, is asset value per share as of September 30th. So when you look at the cash, loans, marketable securities, and the actual value of their facility in Olds, Alberta, the net book value is $1.4 billion or 70 cents per share. So keep in mind, Sundial was trading in the 60-cent range just a couple of days ago, but their asset value per share is actually above that at 70 cents. So that should give you some sort of a feel for the bottom in terms of share price here, you guys. If they were to just go out and sell all the stuff they have plus their cash, you're looking at least 70 cents per share. So realistically, they shouldn't be trading below that unless they're putting up massive losses, which it seems, as we just saw in their Q3 results, are now behind them. Now, I did want to spend a couple of minutes on a few other notable points in this report here, you guys. These are more operational highlights. So the Alcanna acquisition, this was announced October 7th. We covered it on the channel, so if you haven't watched that video, feel free to take a look here, you guys. They paid just under $390 million. This is a well-established liquor retailer here in Canada. They've got operations in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. 3 different banners that they operate under, so Wine and Beyond, Liquor Depot, and Ace Liquor. And in addition to their well-established liquor retail operations, that actually puts up free cash flow of about $16.5 million per year. They also have a 63% majority equity interest in Nova Cannabis. So as part of this deal, they got the liquor retail segment. They also got this majority interest in Nova Cannabis, which again just reported earnings this week, and we're going to take a look at in a second here. So that's going to be huge on the retail front. Alcanna has a very strong understanding of retail operations here in Canada, specifically related to regulated products like liquor and cannabis. They've got AAA real estate, and Nova and Sundial are now going to be able to leverage that insight and understanding to move their business forward. Now, in terms of the cannabis cultivation and production, a couple of highlights here related to efficiency. So they've now increased their grams per square foot to 51 from 49 in Q3 of 2020 in terms of their cultivation practices. Another point I thought was interesting here is they're actually selling at $3.23 per gram compared to only $2.67 per gram in Q3 of 2020. So this is a 56% gram increase. And that's another thing we've talked about on the channel here is really that race to the bottom here, you guys, in terms of the LP or cultivation space. It seems, again, we are hitting the bottom and we're averaging out around that $3.50 per gram kind of price point now that things have shaken out a little bit. So that's encouraging to see that the price of the actual dried flower is not going to continue to drop, or shouldn't, moving forward. And then on the retail front, under the Spirit Leaf banner, they've actually opened 14 stores since July of 2021, and that's now resulting in a total store count of 109 under the Spirit Leaf banner, and then not to mention the Nova Cannabis portfolio that's going to be added on top of that. So across the board here, you guys, very exciting results, both on the financial side of things and on the operational side. And again, I think investors are really starting to warm up to Sundial and maybe shake off some of the frustration that they've felt over the past 6 months. Now, if all of that wasn't enough to move Sundial's share price in pre-market here, this article again came out November 11th, talks about a share repurchase program. This one definitely will move the share price. So the company has authorized a repurchase or buyback up to $100 million Canadian, which actually represents just about 103 million shares under this share repurchase program, representing approximately 5% of the issued and outstanding shares as of November 11th. Now, the program or buyback is good for 1 year, so it's starting November 19th to November 19th of 2022. It's at the company's discretion, so they can pick and choose when and where they want to purchase these shares back. But again, big news for the investment community because it really signals they're done with the dilution. They've identified their share count has got out of control, and now they're actually going out into the open market to purchase shares back, which number one means they feel like they're undervalued. And number two is going to bring down that overall share count and actually reverse the effects of dilution on existing shareholders. And I think honestly, this is a big reason for that massive pre-market share price move we're seeing. Anytime I'm looking at companies or invested in companies that announce share repurchase or buyback programs, I get super excited. I absolutely love to see these things as an investor. So next up, we're going to talk about Alcana here, you guys. You can see they've actually announced timing of Q3 results for after the bell or after the close today on November 12th. On November 11th session, they were up about 5% or 39 cents Canadian. They closed out at $8.65. Alcanna is the big liquor retailer here in Canada, trades under the ticker symbol CLIQ on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And you can see since the announcement of the acquisition by Sundial, the share price has moved tremendously for this company. Back in the middle of summer there, so August 25th, this was trading around $6.50 a share. We then saw them jump up close to $8 in the middle of October there. And then just recently here in the last couple of trading sessions, they're closing in on that $9 mark. I wouldn't be surprised if Alcana has a massive day today, you guys, just because of the relation to Sundial. Obviously, if Sundial's share price goes up, and Alcana shareholders are actually converting their shares of Alcana to shares of Sundial, that's going to have an impact on the price of Alcana shares. So I'll be expecting a big move upwards in Alcana's share price in today's session. Now, the third company I wanted to talk about was Nova Cannabis. This is a cannabis retailer, again, here in Canada. They've got close to 100 locations, I believe. This one's had a very interesting chart over the last 6 months. They were beaten down quite considerably here, you guys, trading right around the $2.50 Canadian mark on August 10th. They then had a massive move at the start of September, up well above $4.30. That was on some big earnings news here, you guys. Now you can see they're trading just below the $4 mark. They had a huge day on November 11th. They were up over 9% to close out at $3.81 Canadian. They trade under the ticker symbol NOVC on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And this is a company that Alcanna actually owns 63% of. So Alcanna owns a majority stake in Nova, and Sundial has now purchased Alcanna, which means by default, Sundial now has a 63% stake in Nova. So again, the share price movement between these three companies is going to be very closely related over the next couple of months until the actual acquisition goes through. And I believe the Alcanna acquisition is actually scheduled to close sometime in Q4 of this fiscal year. Now, interestingly enough, Nova also reported Q3 results on Wednesday, November 10th here, so very recently, and some big numbers out of Nova. They've had a real shift in strategy here, so they've actually gone to a discount or value buds banner. They used to have Nova Cannabis branded stores. They've now realized the market and consumers are looking for that lower cost value or discount kind of proposition. So they've been rebranding their stores. I think virtually all of them now have been rebranded to this Value Buds banner. Again, we talked about that in depth in our last video, so feel free to take a look here, you guys. And you can see based on that shift, they've actually seen 30% revenue growth quarter over quarter compared to Q2 of this year. So sequential revenue growth of 30%, again, by the execution of that Value Buds growth strategy. And what's really interesting here, you guys, is prior to this change, the Nova branded stores were doing, say, $1 million in revenue. Once they make this conversion on an annualized basis, they're now expecting about $3.5 million per store or per location. So a massive change, and we're actually starting to see some of the other competitors in the retail space, like High Tide, follow suit here. So sales came in at 39 million, 142% increase year over year in Q3 of this year to Q3 of last year. And again, that 30% sequential quarter over quarter growth. Gross profit positive 6.5 million, which is a 26% sequential increase. That represents about 17% of sales. Now, one thing I was concerned about in the retail sector here is that gross margin compression, you guys, especially on the value or discount side of things. I was worried about a race to the bottom. And as one of my subscribers actually pointed out, they're starting to see mom and pop shops in this space close down because of this competitive pressure. And I feel like once these stores start to be eliminated, the companies that are left standing, like Fire and Flower, High Tide, Nova Cannabis, then they're going to actually be able to increase their rates and start to see that gross profit or gross margin actually improve a little bit. Now, during the quarter, they opened 11 new Value Bud stores, 6 of them in Ontario, 5 of them in Alberta. Nova has really identified Ontario as a huge opportunity for them moving forward. That works out to roughly 1 per week since Q2 results came out. And based on those new locations, they now have 71 stores up and operational, with a bunch of additional ones in the pipeline, either in development or under active negotiation. Again, the majority of those focused in Ontario, where Nova sees that big opportunity. So if you now consider Sundial owns 63% of this business, 71 stores, 63% of that works out to about 45 locations, plus their portfolio of Spirit Leaf locations. This really is now the largest cannabis retailer here in Canada, in addition to having that robust Alcanna liquor retail exposure. So that's it for today's video here, you guys. Very impressive results from Sundial, both on the financial and operational front. Nova putting up some huge numbers. Things are starting to look very promising in the cannabis sector, especially if you're invested or thinking about investing in Sundial specifically. Let me know in the comment section below if you're currently holding shares, what you thought of their earnings and some of these other developments we talked about in today's video. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And if you're still watching at this point in time, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you hit the like button on your way out. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.